Welcome to Vision IS. Today we have a personality from the famous land from where many revolutionaries were born and many famous personalities were born. MNIT, NIT,
Allahabad.
NIT Allahabad. She has secured 78th rank in the sky of UPSC. I congratulate you for this massive success,
Thank you,
Srishti.
sir.
How are you first, and how are you feeling after this massive achievement?
I'm fine, sir.
Okay. So, Srishti, tell us something about your academics. Like, after graduation, where did you do your graduation, and what was you feeling when you graduated? What was coming in your mind, and what other perspectives you were thinking in your life to go for?
So, I would rather begin from my schooling. So, I finished my schooling from a very small town in Uttar Pradesh called Anpara in Sonbhadra, where my father was posted. I finished all my till my class 12th from there, and it did not have a lot of opportunities for students preparing for competitive examinations. So, from a very early age, I got this jibe of preparing for competitive examinations and staying in that zone. Then, when I landed up in MNIT Allahabad, in my initial years, I was involved in various amount of activities along with my academics in my college, and that in a way framed my mindset and influenced me towards UPSC. And finally, after my college, I had a campus placement. I was also uh, thinking about going for my masters, but eventually, when I decided over all my opportunities, I thought this is worth taking the risk, and I landed up with my UPSC preparations 2 months after my college finished.
Okay, okay. So you change your perspective after waiting all the options that you're having and you went for UPSC. So how do you think that your decision was?
So the decision panned out well, so I'm happy about it. But even if it hadn't, I was ready for another 1 or 2 years with UPSC and trying again for this paper, because this paper requires an amount of dedication, perseverance, and sometimes people do not get it in their first or second attempt, but they should not give up so easily.
Yes, this is a message that everyone should note down that if you are in this examination, you may lose few battles, but it doesn't mean that you need to put all the weapons down because at the end of the day, if you win the war, you will be the winner. Isn't it, Srishti?
Right, sir.
So, as I said, this exam is more about many battles you need to fight, and sometimes you fight it again and again. And once you are through the whole process, whom will you credit your success?
So, the primary and most important credit always goes to my parents. My mother, who stayed with me throughout my preparation in Delhi and managed everything for me, and all I had to do was study. And my father, who sacrificed a lot, lived alone at an age of 50 and managed everything on his own just because I could study, and I was never asked about how and where do I want to do or pursue a coaching or take a study material. Everything was reachable for me because of my parents. Also, I want to thank some of my very sincere friends and seniors who had been helpful during this journey and have motivated me on my tough days, and always told me that if anybody can do this, it's you, and you should just keep going.
Yes, constant support, and that too from the people who are always around us, is very important in this examination because the psychological barriers that this examination puts in are very tough to fight when you're
Right.
alone. So would you narrate, like you told us about your schooling and you told us about your graduation and type of mindset. Would you add like how come your schools and college has helped you in this preparation? Did they provide you the platform, or what type of traits you got from your schools and your colleges that has helped in this exam immensely?
So, this eventually came to me as a realization that how the whole personality and the whole life's experience eventually culminates in your UPSC preparation. So when I was staying in Anpara, it was a very small town. Uh, People from tribal areas were also staying there, and I used to interact with them sometimes. And there was a good mix of people from government services in the department where my father was also working. My own school, which was a convent school, where I got a different kind of perspective towards faith and towards humanity. These all things slowly, intricately changed me and made me what I am today. Apart from this, there were opportunities like discussions, deliberations in my school days and even in my college days, the debates, the co curriculars, dramatics, they all framed my personality in a way that made me suitable and more ready for this paper in a way.
Okay, okay. So when did like actually there was a perspective that you were going for MS and you decided that no, I'll go for civil services. When did you find that now, yes, I have to jump in it? Because when we are at that point of time, when we have so many domains in which we can propel, and taking that leap of faith, this is for me, and putting your stake into it, what was the key moment, if you want to tell us that that was the key moment where I decided कि नहीं मुझे तो यही करना है, I'll just jump in it and let's see where it lands.
So, I believe, like every Indian parent, my parents always wanted me to try for this paper once. And my father, who himself comes from a government service, he always wanted me to try for this paper. Initially, I thought that I need to be more ready for something like this and I need to study more, I need to have some more education. So, I thought I should first go for my master's degree. But once when I finished my college, and those 2 months in which every student decides towards what direction he or she might go after he or she has done his graduation, I evaluated all my options. I had a campus placement and I had a call from a US based university, and I had this option of taking this risk for this paper. Seeking all the options, I realized that at my age, I was quite young and I was still energetic enough to give my best efforts, put my best foot forward towards this examination. And I took that leap of faith and thought that yes, at this point of time, I want to do this.
Okay, okay. And I think that leap of faith finally actualized. Srishti, many of the students might be hearing this, might be listening to the conversation that we are having, and they might be facing the same dilemma that too many options are there, too many fields they can explore, and still they might be sitting and might be thinking that someone shall guide us, that where should we land up. So, in that case, what would you tell students that where should they go? Where should they go? Should they prepare for UPSC or should they go for their normal jobs, or they should go for higher education? So if you want to give some advice to the students who are in this dilemma to decide, so how will you guide them if they intend to?
So, this should be a very personal decision and should be an informed choice. One person must always look at the pros and cons of all the options available to him. For example, in my own case, I believe that I had three options and I thought about what pros and cons each option entails. Suppose a student has a lesser financial stability, comes from a very humble family, he or she might not be able to take that decision instantly. So, this must come from himself. But I believe that in the earlier ages of one's life, we have a greater possibility of coming to a greater platform. So, this is the time where you can inculcate a little amount of risk to whatever you're planning, because later ages in your life do not allow you so much.
So Srishti, finally you decided to sail to the journey towards the becoming an IAS officer, and your ship sailed after your decision that you are not going to pursue for post graduation. Now, how was your journey? How was your journey, and how was your experience in the attempts that you gave in the UPSC?
So, I I gave 2 attempts in UPSC. This has been quite a debated topic, but I want to clear this out that I gave 2 attempts. But the first attempt was when I was in college. I was nowhere planning for UPSC, and I don't know how, but I landed giving the paper in some sort of peer pressure because my friends were also appearing. But in my second attempt, where I was fully ready and mentally prepared for this paper and I wanted to do it, I started by moving to Delhi first and joining my coaching classes here at Vision. And the period was quite struggling. I think the most amount of struggle comes from living at Old Rajendra Nagar, because one has to change their daily habits, eating, adjust to the accommodations and the strict timelines which are associated with UPSC schedules. That came as a challenge, but somehow because my mother always stayed with me, that became easy to me, and with consistent efforts that became easier day by day. The second biggest challenge was to cut down your social interactions, because just after leaving college I had a big social circle and I had a lot of friends and family to talk to. And in the generation of social media and mobile phones, it's tough to cut down your social interactions. But I decided that I would not be very much in touch with social media. I deactivated my accounts because I was not the person who was very much in self control when it came to social media.
Nobody is. When it comes to social media, we actually sometimes go with the flow, and they एक वीडियो के बाद फिर दूसरा वीडियो, and algorithms are so well, they identify your interest and they waste a lot of time.
Right, sir. So, but eventually, once I got into my own path of my preparation, and I started developing an interest in my syllabus and the paths of a UPSC preparation, I never felt the need of relying on social media for entertainment. UPSC itself is a big source of entertainment and curiosity, persistence. And then slowly and steadily it became easier day by day. Later on, when the COVID struck and I had to again move back to my home place, that was also a challenge because we were stuck here for almost 2 months, and there was no transportation accommodation, and staying here at my PG, that was very tough. Moving back with all the bags and baggages just 2 months before my paper, and then readjusting to the new place and calibrating my preparation was also tough. But I think with the right amount of support and motivation, and just thinking that you cannot give up at this stage, it makes it a lot easier.
Okay, good. So, Srishti, you talked about that about your first attempt, that you were not prepared. It was a very casual attempt in a say. Many of the students try this. And sometimes they feel that they are not well prepared. They just go in the exam to see the nature of the exam and to get the feel of the exam. How far do you think this is it is justified? Because you sometimes miss your precious attempt. So, what is your view on this? Going back to the point where you were just starting up, would you take that thing again? Would you take that attempt again?
In my opinion, sir, this should not be done, because in UPSC the number of attempts bring an amount of mental pressure on the candidate. A person in his first or second attempt is more confident, is more vibrant, as is he in a third or fourth attempt, though the people who have been cracking in their later attempts have been extremely perseverant, but it slowly comes as a toll on your mental health. So I don't think that a person should waste their precious attempts just for the sake of knowing how the paper is. I was not advised well, and somehow I never thought that I would be preparing for UPSC, and destiny made its calling. But I think nobody else should do this mistake.
Yes. Every attempt is precious, and you should be prepared very well. Should not have second doubts before going to the examination hall. So, Srishti, this is a long journey, and you have faced many things. Okay, if you have to pinpoint, what is the crucial thing that one requires to get a good rank?
Sir, in my opinion, I think the most important thing which usually people miss is the importance of tests and practice in answer writing. Any amount of good content would not fetch you enough marks if you do not know how to present it on your final day. In the same way for prelims, even if you have a variety of knowledge on variety of topics, if you are not comfortable with the OMR and with the strategy of solving the prelims paper, you would face ample difficulties, might even miss the timeline, and this creates issues, and sometimes candidates who are deserving enough miss the opportunity.
Yes, yes, indeed, practice makes human beings perfect. Okay, coming back to this, like there is an information age. You find n number of resources available, and everyone wants to know what exactly was topper reading. So, if you mind to share some of the materials that you have referred for both prelims and mains, which are crucial for this particular examination.
So, primarily, as all the people say, my first source was NCRTs and the basic books. For example, Lakshmikant for polity, Spectrum for modern history, GC Leong for geography, and the same amount of books, Atlas, etc. Then I relied on my coaching source material and whatever notes I had from my coaching. If I felt like certain topic was lacking in its preparation or I wanted to do certain value addition, then I went to internet sources, googling and reading it on Wikipedia or any other book. But I think the limitation of sources and multiple revisions is more important rather than going to multiple sources and just reading them once or twice.
Okay, so it's good to read one book again and again than to read multiple
Yes.
books. Yes, many of the students fault on this. So, Srishti, we have seen the syllabus and the pattern of examination in UPSC, and prelims and mains two stages have different components. In prelims, you have to go with MCQs, and in mains, you have to write descriptive answers. So, how did you prepare for both the stages? Was it an integrated preparation, or you did a separate preparation for prelims, and then you just put the guns again for the mains?
So, the UPSC is a monolithic entity when it comes to preparation. All the parts, even the interview portion, in some ways is integrated with how you prepare for your prelims and mains because your opinions come from your own preparation. While preparing, I was pursuing answer writing from the very first day. I was not writing full length papers, but I was practicing daily one answer writing. And I started writing papers within 2 months of my preparation, sectional tests. Along with that, I frequently attempted MCQs. Even if I attempted 5-10 MCQs in a week, and once I finished a topic, I've attempted a full length test on that topic. That gave me a boost that I can score well in the paper.
Good, good. So, Srishti, many of the students are generally finding this difficult to frame out the actual time required for this preparation, because we find students who had give repeated attempts and some students like you who just give one sincere attempt and they sail through all the three stages of examination. What is the ideal time that one should invest both in prelims and mains?
Sir, I believe that the syllabus of UPSC can be thoroughly covered in 8 or 9 months for prelims, but it can only be done so if you have been doing answer writing continuously, even in smaller amounts, so that you have an idea of what kind of questions have been appearing in UPSC and you're not new and novice to the mains portion. Also, you need to invest at least 3 to 4 months in your optional. You have this choice that you can do this simultaneously with your GS preparation, but several people are not able to manage it and they take another 3-4 months for this. So, I would say at least 1.5 year for UPSC preparations must be taken.
That should be sincere.
Yes, that should
And
be
the
sincere.
variables that we need to put in is the sincerity, discipline, and a task focused approach,
Right.
isn't it, Srishti? So, What about time management? How do you allocate your time when it comes to your daily goals or tasks? How did you plan for your time?
If a person is taking some sort of coaching classes, about 5-6 hours would go in their coaching lectures because of one lecture for JS and one could be for optional or some for current affairs as well. Apart from that, you need to have around 4 to 5 hours of self study period so that you revise whatever you've been reading, and you must have a direction of what your strategy is, how you're going to pursue a particular subject. That requires at least 3-4 hours. Alongside, you need time for newspaper reading or any other source material, advanced book. So I believe around 9 to 10 hours are ideal every day, but you cannot digress a lot from this timeline. You cannot go 15 hours a day and then 3 hours another day.
Okay, okay. So consistency is more important.
Yes.
In prelims examination, what was your strategy and when did you shift your preparation specifically in a prelims oriented mode? That now, yes, we have to focus on the prelims.
So in my prelims examination, my first and foremost target was to finish all my parts of prelims examination before March, because my prelims was going to happen in May. So 2 months before my prelims examination, I had this target to finish all the subjects which were coming for prelims, not the main subjects, for example ethics, essay, etc. Then in this period when I was finishing my syllabus, I was alongside also solving papers and questions and past year questions. In the last 2 months, I stressed more on paper solving, revising the current affairs, and revising those portions which were more memory based rather than concept based. I did not pick any new source material in those 2 months except for current affairs magazines, the PTs, because that creates an added pressure of completion. When my prelims got extended, I practiced around 30-35 more tests
Okay.
rather than reading something new. I practiced a lot of tests, especially on those topics where I felt that I was lacking in some manner, so that I have a greater idea of how to approach questions when I don't know the answers, how to approach the elimination part in prelims.
So, how many tests like you have practiced before the prelims?
So, if I go by the full length tests, I practiced 30 tests before May, and when my prelims got extended, I practiced around 35 more tests.
Okay, 65 to 70 tests. These are quite good amount of tests. Uh, Students sometimes have this ability to go with test and they give good amount of test, but they don't gain from the test. I've interacted with many students. They go on giving the test without getting something out of it. So you were practicing. You have practiced around 70 tests. How you were enriching yourself through the test?
So, practicing a prelims test is not a 2 hours task, it is actually a 6 to 7 hours task. So, the day I practiced, I attempted a test, I attempted the paper, and then I checked my score and checked whatever the answers were. The next day, I kept for its analysis, and I devoted at least 3 to 4 hours on all the questions, even in the questions where I attempted the answer right. If I was somehow conceptually lacking, I read about the question and I made it to a practice that I used to Google about all the other options if I didn't know about them, so that I could gain additional knowledge. Also, I used to make online notes of whatever summary I was provided with the test, so that whatever new knowledge I have gained from the test was also being included as a source of knowledge for me.
So is there any ideal number of tests that one should give?
So there's no ideal number of tests. The number of tests must be decided on the amount of accuracy you're facing in the papers and how much confident you're feeling about prelims. But I believe that at least 20 tests must be given, so that would give you a fair idea of time management and strategy building and how many questions you must attempt on your final day.
Many students find it difficult to analyze these tests, and a lot of time is being taken in analysis of the test. Would you share some specific strategies to reduce the time in analyzing the test?
Um, First of all, it should not be taken as a disadvantage that we are investing our time in the analysis, because the time invested in analysis is the time saved on the final day paper. Also, one or two tests must be given in this manner where you do a full analysis of whatever you've been attempting and how much accuracy you are getting in the paper. What I used to do was I used to do an iterative attempt of prelims paper. In my first iteration, I used to do only those questions which I was fully confident about 15 questions. In those questions, usually should be the questions where you have 95% accuracy or above. You're totally sure of the answers. Then in the second iteration, I used to do questions where I was almost confident or unsure between two options. And then in the third iteration, I used to do the tough questions where I didn't know and I had to eliminate. And I also evaluated how much accuracy I had in multiple papers in these three iterations. Then I came to a score of about 85 to 87 questions, which was suitable according to me to be attempted on my final day so that I could score the maximum number of marks.
Yes. You rightly pointed out that many students are in dilemma. Some go with the preconceived notion that these number of questions I need to attempt, or there are many words in the town which that you have to attempt 100 questions, or you have to maximize your attempt and all this. How can one student find out that these are the ideal questions that we need to focus on, that I have to attempt this many questions?
So, this should be based on your mock test preparations only. So, when one attempts one's mock test, one gets a fair idea of how many questions he attempted and how many questions were right or wrong. This would give him an idea of his overall accuracy. In these questions, one can evaluate how many questions he or she was confident about and how many questions were educated guesses or blind guesses. Then one must see that how accurate he or she is in his or her guesses. This all idea gives you a fair evaluation that how many questions must be attempted on the final day. This should not be random. If a person is very accurate in her guesses, even if he or she attempts less number of questions, he would score fairly well on the final day. But if a person is not good with the educated guesses part or elimination part, then he or she needs to attempt more questions to avoid the negative marking.
Okay. There is also a mental blockage when it comes to difficult questions sometimes in mocks, and students sometimes get frightened by the marks they score in these mock tests, and they usually don't go for the next coming mocks, considering that these are very difficult questions. You might not find these questions in the real time examination, and so on and so forth. So you might have also encountered such difficult mock tests. So how did you mentally prepare for those hard questions?
Sir, I have multiple stories of failed mock tests, and there was a test just a week before my prelims where I only got 50 marks and I got extremely disheartened. But my teacher always used to say that these tests are not tests, they are source materials for you. They provide you with knowledge, and these are not the exact questions which are going to come on your final day. So you should use them as a source firstly. You should not be frightened that you're not getting adequate marks. Also, you should see it as a part of your preparation. For example, if you're getting 50-60 marks, you should see which sections you're lacking in and work on those sections. This is an added benefit that if you're scoring less in your early days, you would get to know what part you need to work on rather than failing on the final day.
Yes, exactly. And the more you sweat in training, the less you'll bleed in war. So, coming to the prelim specific sources, Shrishti, would you like to tell us some specific sources that you just followed for prelims?
So, for prelims, I think apart from the test papers, there are some daily focus current affairs of coachings, also Vision also makes them. One can refer to them so that he or she doesn't miss a current affair news which is not covered in the newspapers. Newspapers must be thoroughly read. PTs must be read because they give added confidence regarding the current affairs part. Most of us are skeptical about the current affairs, so PTs give us that confidence. Other than that, I think Atlas must be prepared in a thorough manner to attempt those geography questions. And for environment, one can rely on internet sources, read Wikipedia for each and every. There is a list on Wikipedia about the IUCN status of various species. These kind of sources could be relied on. There is one section of art and culture which students really fret about. I think Wikipedia is a very important source for art and culture. For the more important sections such as Buddhism, Jainism, temple architecture, if one just reads one Wikipedia page, one would get ample amount of information, and this is very helpful for UPSC.
Okay, this was all about the preparation for the day. What about the day when you're sitting in the hall and you have that examination paper in your hand? Now everything is coming in your mind कि इसके बाद क्या होगा, पता नहीं पेपर कैसा आएगा, और your everything is on the stake in just 5 minutes before the examiner is going to distribute those papers. How did you felt at that point of time? How did you control your nerves, and what should not be done and in this particular scenario?
I remember my prelims day very vividly. So it was on 4th of October, a little chilly that day, but then suddenly sun came out and it was a government school with no fans, and the whole setup was very intimidating because you could see students of various amount of preparation sitting around you. Some were looking very confident, some were stressed, some looked like they have already attempted a lot of prelims papers. My first reaction was intimidation, and then I thought that maybe I'm not well prepared. But then I took 4 or 5 deep breaths and I thought that I am confident with my preparation and I can do this. I remember when I got the question paper, I checked my watch, and when I saw the first 5-10 questions, I didn't know the answer to a single one of them, and I thought that this attempt is going to be wasted and I might not qualify. Then I left the paper on the table, took 3-4 deep breaths again, and I thought, if I don't attempt this paper, I'll definitely not qualify. But if I attempt it with my sincerity, I might qualify. So whatever knowledge I had, whatever thoughts I had regarding not being qualified, I pushed them aside and I used every trick in my pocket to score as much as I can and attempt my 85 questions. When I came out, I attempted 88 questions on my final day because I thought the paper was tough and I might not be that accurate. So I attempted 88 questions and then I left everything on luck and just came out. So I think these are the things which one can keep in mind, that the paper might be very tough, but it would be tough for everybody. You might not get the right ambient situations in your examination hall. You might have a loud classroom, you might not have right amount of people sitting around you, or there could be an OMR mishappening. But all these things must be kept aside, and those 2 hours must be fully concentrated on the paper so that one scores well.
Yes, it's very important that once you get distracted, once you get into the flow of negative thoughts, and your preparation gets affected, because your performance exactly relies on what you are thinking at that point of time. So maintaining calm, being composed throughout the paper is one of the most important thing that prelims exam checks, that is the candidate calm and composed or not. Very good, nice listening about those experiences. And we often see students sharing these types of experiences, that they open the paper up and they find in no question they can exactly say that this is the right answer, but still they sail through. So leap of faith is required, and making themselves composed in the real time situation is also very important. So this was about prelims, and now we have just cleared prelims, we are in the mains. So what was your strategy for mains?
So when I started preparing for mains, 2 days after prelims, I thought when I checked my scores with various answer keys, and I knew that I was qualifying prelims. 2 days after, I decided to start my mains preparations. I was finished with my optionals coaching and I had the notes prepared, but I was not thoroughly prepared for my optional to write an exam. Also with my GS, I had done a lot of answer writing, but I hadn't written full length answers. So my focus was to start my answer writing as soon as possible, and those 3 months were extremely devoted to the answer writing part of GS as well as optional. There were two optional papers, English and Hindi, and I was not ready to leave them for an element of surprise. So I also practiced them beforehand so that I was comfortable on the final day. Then regarding my optional, I took a test series, and I also did an everyday answer writing with a study group where all the students were from anthropology, and we evaluated each other's answer copies and prepared a question bank so that it could be revised on the final day of the examination. This was my strategy. So
Okay, so main focus was expression, written expression, and you worked on it. Okay. Any any specific material sources that were just specific to mains? Would you like to tell us that these were the things that I referred for the mains specifically?
Sir, I think mains is more about a person's opinions and how he or she pursues the discussion about any question which has been asked. So, the source material should be firstly from the government sources. Whatever data the government is publishing through the newspapers, or if you have time, you can read economic survey and those kind of documents which the government regularly publishes to get the idea of what the government intends to do. The opposite argument, the challenges in the administrations, the lacuna, they must be covered from your coaching sources or from the Mains 365 or from your own academic intellect, what you think that there is a lacuna in this particular policy. I used to always sit back and think about whatever lacuna a particular policy which was being introduced is facing. Then there were editorials in the newspaper which also helped to build that opinion. And regarding the optional, you need specific sources. That would be more about the optional specific, whatever optional you've been taking on.
Srishti, there are many miscellaneous topics like disaster management, security, you find governance. What was your strategy to deal with those topics?
So regarding disaster management, there was an NCRT source of disaster management. I covered it, and then I prepared the past year questions of disaster management, and all the disasters which happened in the past 1 year. I focused primarily on them or any other development in disaster management policies in the past 1 year. That was my primary source. Then there were topics like security, society. So each topic has its own challenges. Society needs answers with more opinion, with more dimensions, how you think about a problem, and what all multidimensional challenges a problem poses for the society. So creating scatter diagrams in your free time for problems such as dowry or female feticide or any problem in the society just opens your mind towards thinking about multidimensional problems. And regarding other subjects which were
Security
in,
and
yes,
governance.
um, after covering the primary sources, it's important to refer to previous year questions so that you get a fair idea of what kind of questions have been coming, and write those questions in your own way so that you can understand what kind of answers are suitable for that topic.
Yes, yes. And previous year question is just like a lighthouse in the sea. You can see where you are going because uh, UPSC prelims previous year questions help you that this is the direction you need to sail. It's very important to go for the UPSC previous year questions. You talked about answer writing, Srishti. So how did you worked on your answers? What was your first answer like? Because everyone writes it for the first time, and there is always an inertia when it comes to answer writing. Students generally don't tend to write answers because they think कि मैं बहुत अच्छा आंसर नहीं लिखूंगा, बहुत कम नंबर आएंगे, और एग्जैक्टली कई बार उनके कम नंबर आते भी हैं, isn't it? तो how did you pass that inertial this inertia initially?
So in my own case, the first answer I ever wrote, I got 2 marks out of 10, and I was totally disheartened because I thought that I could write well. So to me, it came as a surprise. But I remember distinctly that my first answer was just a lot of writing, lot of content, a lot of statements and paragraphs, and it was more like a creative expression or an editorial of the newspaper rather than a UPSC answer. It had no structure, no presentation. I underlined almost everything, and when now I see my present day answers or the answers I just wrote before mains, I realize how structured those answers had become. So I think answer writing requires the basic structuring which everybody talks about, the introduction, content, and conclusion part. The introduction needs to be catchy. For writing a catchy introduction, you should have some amount of statistics or some definitions in your pocket always to quote them, or to just write them in to make the introduction part look good. The content part must be very well organized in points or even in paragraphs. You need to make it examiner friendly so that the examiner can easily surf through and understand whatever you've written. Good use of presentation is important. The flow charts, the diagrams, wherever you can, it's very important. Maps, draw maps even in society papers if you can, in my opinion. And for ethics and essay, you can always go for poems, anecdotes. I used a lot of poetry in my papers, and that really gave me a confidence that I'm writing well, and I think the examiner also might have felt good about them.
Yes, yes, exactly. So it was very nice to hear this, that the topper in the exam, when she wrote her first answer, just secured 2 marks. So don't get disheartened that you're getting less marks. You should work on how can I increase those marks, how to improve those things. Ethics is one of the most important subject when it comes to GS papers. So what was your strategy for ethics?
So, ethics has 3 parts. The first is the theory of ethics, the second is ethics and governance, where we have policies and how ethics works in the government institutions, and the third part is the case studies. I think all three must be prepared in their own way. The theory must be read and understood primarily first, all the parts of emotional and intelligence, attitude, the changes, the theories of Aristotle, Socrates, etc. And then one must go to the administration part and apply the knowledge from the first part into this section. Understand the laws and the policies of government institutions, the rules, the ethical codes of conduct, and why they are in place. Then, for the writing part, I think it's important to refer to toppers' copies because they give us a fair understanding of what kind of answers and how the presentation could work in an ethics paper, because ethics has no source material of
Yes,
its own.
exactly.
And for case studies, there are manuals available of various sources. Even Vision has a very descriptive manual which I refer to, which has a good collection of case studies. One can read them and understand how to attempt a case study and how to write them in the best possible fashion.
Okay, okay. So coming to the case study part, like what is the best approach in your opinion while writing a case study?
So, regarding the case study, a case study can be of any form. It could be something which has a ethical dilemma at its crux, or there could be one case study where everything seems fair and one only has to explain why a certain course of action was taken. So, firstly, reading the case study in the fastest manner and understanding the gist of it also needs practice, because on your final day ethics would become a challenge for a paper to be completed. So reading the case study in a quick manner and understanding the gist is one thing. The second thing is developing the your answer in your mind in within a very small span of time. One can mention the stakeholders of a situation. One can first explain what is the ethical dilemma or what is the problem in this case study, and then go for the course of action which you are suggesting. Also suggesting the multiple course of actions and why certain course of action can or cannot be taken is a good way of making the examiner understand your perspective towards a situation.
Yes, yes, because case study has an important marks allocated to it, and writing case study is itself a very lengthy job to do, because you have to write too many words in that, and you have to make sure that you are writing all the right words also. So case studies have their own set of skills to deal with. What about essays? You talked about that you write a lot of poetry when it comes to essay preparation. So many of us are not poets. So would you tell us something that can help students to sail through essays with good marks?
When I was preparing for essays, one of my teachers, she always told me then we should first have our essay in our mind before we start penning it down. So, first deciding on which essay to write in the choices available and choosing the essay about which you know the most is the important decision to make. You should not make a creative choice and go with a random essay on which you cannot write 800 words. You can take a very common choice and write it in the best fashion. Then use the rough space which is available in your papers and develop as many dimensions as you can on that essay. Go with a pestle analysis or go with a society, family, nation, and international view, or whatever way you know. And always structure your essay before writing your essay. Then, when you start writing your essay, the two parts of essay, the introduction and conclusion, they need to be very catchy, as most of the toppers copies also suggest. So introduction, various people use anecdotes if they don't know poetry. They use definitions or anything else, and those anecdotes do not need to be something of very of prior importance. They could be common day stories, stories from families, stories from common people.
Organic,
Yes,
organic things are more valuable. Okay,
yes.
okay,
And then about these anecdotes, you can also pick them from YouTube videos
yes.
or stories of people you've read in newspapers, anything which influences you and makes you think about that topic of the essay. That makes your introduction part very catchy. Then organized content and proper underlining of whatever topic, whatever theme you want to stress on, and making the conclusion bring a finality to your essay. The conclusion should be the end point to the circle of essay. It should not be a free end. So this all elements, if one includes well, along with reference to previous year's toppers copies, one can easily crack the essay portion. And ideally one should write 5-6 essays beforehand, so that even if somebody is lacking in the portion of writing too much, he or she can amply use the GS knowledge into the essays to write a good essay.
Sister, you said that you were an editor or you were in writing in your college days only. So you had that inclination to write good things in a format which is required. What should be the ideal time when a normal student should start writing essays first, and when should he start? When should he start writing essays?
So essays must be written after one has finished his or her GS syllabus, because the GS syllabus is the fundamental of the essay writing. Whatever you are writing, you would always bolster your argument from whatever knowledge you have from the GS part. Then, thus, this should be ideally done between the time of prelims and mains. And essay must be written in the stipulated time. Many people have this habit of practicing essay as a free leisure activity, which is not the right approach in my opinion. Essay must be written in the fashion you would write on your final day in the 3-hour time with 2 essays, and devoting a 20-minute time to the discussion part of what you're going to write, and then framing the essay in the limited time. This would give you a fair idea of the practice of how to write the essay on your final day.
Good. And how important is the good language and the vocabulary? Because many students feel like that writing essay, one should have a enriched vocabulary or good writing English skills. So, and because of that, they don't start writing it because they have this mental blockage in that, like they think that writing more essays will require good amount of vocabulary that I'm lacking. So they don't pass that inertia. So, do you think that you require Shakespeare type of English, or you require a very good vocabulary to write good essays?
No, sir. Actually, the paper entails that you write it in the most fundamental, in the most natural, easy way. Simplicity is the key. Even though I come from a writing background, I strictly know that when I am forced to read something very flowery and something which includes tough words, I don't enjoy it well. Whereas when something is written in the most simplest words, but it is written in a way which is well arranged, and it makes you think and ponder over the situation, that is more creative, and that is what influences somebody. So essay must not be based on flowery language, it should be based on simplicity, but you should avoid grammatical mistakes. If you are consistently repeating grammatical mistakes, you should work on that part.
Okay, okay. Srishti, you said that you gave 70 prelims mock, around 70 prelims mock. So, did you repeat it the same in mains? How many marks did you give in mains?
So for mains, I gave around 26 JS tests, 25 or 26, and then 6, 7 optional papers, and then I wrote several sectional papers also. But I did not do this in the period of 3 months. I started writing sectional tests along with my GS Plus mains preparations throughout, and I was writing full length test immediately after my prelims was completed. So that allowed me and gave me a lot of time to write so many tests. But I believe ideally at least 10 tests must be given before one goes for mains, so that a fair idea of how to write, at what speed to write, one gets this idea and does not repeat these mistakes on the final day.
Yes, so that one can do the mistakes at the comfort of their where they can afford to do that. Because in mains, you don't get that chance again and again. Coming to this question, that while writing answers, there is a dilemma that one should go with the paragraph format or should go with the point format. How should I structure my answer? So, anything that you devised for yourself while writing answers?
Sir, I took it as a subject by subject approach. So, in my mind, I had a different kind of presentation for every question or every topic which I was answering. If the topic was opinion intensive, for example, a governance question or a society question where I need to present my opinion on a topic, I pursued the paragraph approach, because opinion cannot be pursued in points easily. And I underlined every important aspect of my opinion in the proper fashion. But in topics where it needed to present as many dimensions as possible, and it did not need me to present a lot of opinion but just a lot of challenges, a lot of solutions, or a lot of perspectives, then I used the point by point approach. Also, if it was possible that it would be convenient for me to present these points in a flowchart fashion, so I pursued it in a flowchart manner to improve my presentability.
So there is no fixed structure as such. You need to be flexible according to the question. Okay, Srishti, now going back, you just cleared prelims. You have extensively prepared for mains, and the day comes. You sitting in the examination hall, and the examiner gives you the first booklet that you need to write. So what was that experience? And of course, when we write answers, when we start writing answers, few questions we are confident about, and few questions we know that we don't know about them. and few questions we are just in a dilemma that कुछ पता है कुछ नहीं पता है, we are sailing in between. So how did you tackle that particular paper when you were sitting in the examination hall and things were going at very fast speed, because there is no, you have to, there is a time limitation, you have to do all those things in 3 hour format. So how did you manage that?
So I distinctly remember my mains experience. I gave my mains in Delhi in January 2020, and to January 2021, I guess. Yes, sir, January 2020.
2020.
There was a very chilly weather here. It was raining and it was already very cold. And every morning I had to wake up at 7:30 to be present at a 9 o'clock paper in mains. Uh, I remember there were a lot of challenges on my final day, like the seating arrangement, the issues of government schools not being fit for answer writing for 6 hours consistently for every day. And then there were challenges of questions which I didn't know the answer well. I always had this in my mind that I have to attempt all the 20 questions. I would not leave something because it's a subjective paper. If I leave something, I'm already being at disadvantage. If I attempt, there's a chance that I'll get 1 or 2 marks in the question. So I attempted all the papers with all the questions, and because I did so much answer writing, so I was able to finish mostly everything in my papers. There was only one paper which was GS3 where I digressed from my previous strategy of time management and used 2 to 3 more minutes in some questions, and this led to me writing the last 2 questions in a very non-organized way, and I then scored less in GS3 also. So I would suggest that one should always have this strategy of time management in his mind, that I'll finish the 10 markers in 1 hour, then I'll have 2 hours or 1 hour 50 minutes for the rest of the 10 questions, or how to answer the ethics paper. For example, what I did was I finished 2 case studies, then answered part A, and then came back for the rest of the 4 case studies to finish the paper in the right amount of time. Same for the optional. This all could be easily done if you have practiced well in prior. And on the final day, just remember that you need to finish the paper in the best possible fashion. Have good amount of pens with you so that if one falls, you do not need to waste your time picking it up. And just take good care of yourself in that week. Don't fall sick so that you are not subjected to something which makes your preparation weaken.
Yes, exactly. And falling pen anecdote was very good because you don't have that much of time to even pick the pen, because you need to write many, many words. Coming to the optional, Srishti, what, like, you chose anthropology. So while choosing an optional, what were the variables that you were putting emphasis on? That these are the variables that I should weight while choosing an optional subject.
So, firstly, when one should choose their optional, they should go for their own subject, graduation subject, if they are comfortable with it. In my case, I came from electronics and communication engineering, and electronics is not available as an optional in UPSC. And I had a choice of taking electrical or taking some humanities subject as my optional. Since my background was where I was comfortable with writing and being creative in the paper, I thought humanities subjects would make a good choice, better choice, rather than going for a technical subject which would require more rigorous practice and more time from me. So that's why I went for a humanities subject. About choosing why I chose anthropology and not something else, it was based on some very strategic reasons. Number one was anthropology had been previously taken by a lot of BTechs. There were previous examples, success stories of students who have qualified anthropology and were from BTech background. So I thought if they could do it, I could also do it. The second reason was that when I read the syllabus of all the subjects, I thought that anthropology was the most convincing and most attractive for me. I developed an instant interest in the syllabus. more or less because it had genetics, and I always had this curiosity for genetics in the back of my mind. The third reason was the syllabus was very short, so as compared to the other optionals, I could revise it multiple times. And even though it required some amount of memorizing, when I had to revise it 5-6 times, the memorizing part became easy. So these all reasons led to me to choose anthropology. And I would like to add that there were days when I thought I could not conquer this subject, I'd fail or I would not be able to write. But on those days, I just stuck to my choice, and I thought that if I have taken it up, I would not give it up. So I was not somebody who just delved into 4 or 5 optionals when she felt that she could not do it. I just stuck to my choice, and I think that paid well.
Yes, it paid very well. Uh, See, would you like to tell us would you like to give some important points with respect to your optional preparation to the students, that these were the few things that you compulsively have to do when it comes to your optional preparation?
So regarding anthropology, I believe the first thing is to have a good command over the previous year questions. In most of the optionals, the pattern of questions is tractable. You can understand what kind of topics are being targeted by UPSC or which topic has more weightage. So refer to your previous year questions and develop your strategy accordingly. If you have limited time, go for those topics where there is a greater chance of scoring. Then secondly, you must write an answer for an optional subject if it's a humanities subject in the way of an anthropological perspective and not of a GS perspective. To develop this, you must have good amount of understanding for the subject. You need to quote the thinkers of the subject. You need to have some government data or supplement it with case studies of tribes and societies. That is what is needed for an optional preparation, and that needs your additional effort. This would not be provided to you by some sources directly. You need to surf through government sources, Ministry of Tribal Affairs magazines. These all sources could be referred so that you can have a good amount of additional supplement apart from your GS knowledge for a subject like anthropology.
Okay, good. So we are done with the mains, and the results come, and finally you see that you are ranked, that you have been called for a personality test. So first, I would like to know that what was your reaction when you see your name in the list for the interview call?
Um, so I don't know how to say this, but somehow I knew that I would qualify mains. Though I was not sure how much score I would be getting, but after I had written my mains and because of so much practice, I was pretty confident that I would be making it to the mains list at least. So when the result came, it was more like an anticipation of when would the result come rather than how would the result be. But yes, when the result came, it was a lot of frenzy, a lot of excitement in the family, and everybody was cheering me. Everybody was very happy. For the first 2 days, it took a while to sink in and to understand that I have a new challenge in front of me, which was interviews. And then from there on, I took up for the interviews preparation, which itself was a challenge at first, and then that went as it went.
So, how should one prepare for those challenges that you're talking about, the interview challenge? Because this is the last hurdle, and we are already exhausted by prelims and mains, and suddenly the results come. It gives us the spark of hope. Now you were just in the last stage, but still, interview preparation is a bit different when it comes to prelims and mains. So, how one should prepare for this?
So, interview preparation, according to me, though I do not have a lot of experience with interviews, but with my UPSC preparation, what I learned in this small amount of time was mocks really help. Giving mocks gives you a lot of confidence and an understanding of what is needed for the interview. When I was starting with my mocks, in my very first mock, I was stuttering and I was not able to make eye contact with the interviewer. So because even though I'm a decently confident person, when it comes to the added pressure of giving a UPSC interview, even the bravest of us could stutter. So when I sat on that chair, and they were asking me opinion-based questions, and the questions were from various domains, since there is no syllabus for interview, I was not very confident and I was nervous. But after giving 3-4 mocks, I felt that it's not necessary to know the answer of each or every question. The point is to be honest with the interviewer that no, you do not know the answer, and respectfully decline that, sorry sir, I don't know the answer to this particular question, but I will surely go back and read about it. That is the primary thing which you need to understand when it comes to interview preparation, and that comes with giving a lot of mocks. Alongside, me and my friend, he was also preparing for the interviews, and he also made it to the list. So we had a study group of 2 people, where every night we had a phone call where we used to strictly discuss the news of that day or whatever development took place, and our own opinions, discussions, deliberations, and government's opinion on that issue. So throughout the period of interview preparation, from the day the result came to the day I appeared on the interview, we had this constant deliberation, and on my final day I was feeling so confident that I know everything which happened in the past 4 months, and I can discuss and talk and present my viewpoint in this fashion.
So, what is more important when you go to an interview hall? Is the content more important? Is your demeanor more important? The level of confidence you have is more important? What is the prime characteristics that you felt the UPSC is looking for?
So the interview, the real interview was more like a very intellectual discussion with some very esteemed intellectuals. They were extremely cordial. They even said that there's no language barrier, and you're free to speak in Hindi. Somehow my panel was so cordial. So I believe that it's not necessary to have a lot of content and to be very precise with everything. What is needed is firstly to be polite and confident, and be yourself. Don't try and imitate somebody on your final day. Don't try and digress too much from whatever is being asked. If you don't know, accept that you are not aware of something, and just try and enjoy the process of that 30-35 minutes. I think that is what I did, and I was pretty happy when I came out of that interview hall.
Yes, yes. So honesty is always the best thing that you can go with. So, like you talked about the practice, the importance of practice. While doing interviews, how many mocks do you think that mock interview should be given?
So, in my case, actually, I gave a lot of mocks. I gave around 16-17 mocks because somehow our interviews got extended because of COVID second wave, and we had a lot of time to prepare for the interviews. But I thought, when I re-evaluated my strategy, I thought that giving a lot of mocks was not extremely advantageous, because after time I started doubting my own personality. There were contradictory reviews given in some mocks, and then I thought whether I have to be soft spoken or loud and affirmative, or whether I have to be more confident, more smiling, or more composed. So this could happen to somebody else too. I think ideally one should give 5 to 6 mocks, of even 4 mocks is enough. This should depend on how confident the person is feeling, and if he or she feels that he or she is lacking some sort of confidence, then he should go for 1 or 2 mocks more. Don't give your mocks in the very last stage, and because negative reviews can make you underconfident.
That can hamper your mindset because contradictory views can come because different people see things differently. So it's better to restrict yourself. First, identify that what weaknesses one have, and if required, you can go for more mocks. But you have to put an end to that also. You cannot go on and on with mocks. So, What about current affairs? Like there is current affairs is very important. Everybody knows this. And when you're preparing for UPSC, you have to go with your optional subject. You're preparing GS also. You're taking 2 classes a day, and then you have to read the newspaper, which is one of the most tedious tasks that UPSC aspirants face. Reading the newspaper itself, because the number of words in newspaper is almost equivalent to the number of words written in NCERT. So what is your strategy, and what should be the strategy for the students to tackle current affairs?
So I'm not sure what should be the strategy for current affairs. I was also one of them who were struggling with current affairs. But I did a breakdown of previous year questions for prelims and mains, and I realized that about 55-60% of the paper is from the static part, or even if it is from the dynamic current affairs part, the current affairs is associated with the static part. For example, if there's a polity question on fast track courts, the fast track courts are discussed in my class notes as well. So I first stuck to good preparation of my static part so that I do not need to rely a lot on my current affairs. The second part was about the current affairs. Daily newspaper reading becomes necessary, and it's almost vital for every UPSC aspirant. It is not about extracting the content from the newspaper. It is about developing your opinion, which you're going to take to your mains or to your interview. For prelims, yes, it's necessary to know a lot of facts, but I think the facts thing can be covered from sources like monthly magazines, which are very comprehensive. And if you've been reading your newspapers every day in a thorough fashion, which means giving it around 40 minutes, 30 minutes of good reading, you would be amply aware of a topic to be able to eliminate certain options and get to the right option. Plus, always remember that the questions of current affairs, there are certain questions in the paper which even the toppers don't know about. So don't just take your mind to that one question and be worried about it till your last day. Think it like an approach of I have to breach the barrier of prelims. I don't need to score 180 out of 200 to get selected. Then about the current affairs mains strategy. The mains current affairs is not about mugging up, it's also opinion based. So newspapers again become very important. For that part, I think if one can read 2 newspapers to get diversity of opinions, then it becomes very easy. I never made notes of newspapers, but some people do, so that should be a personal opinion.
Okay, and when it comes to current affairs, there is always a dilemma, because when new student starts his or her preparation, first he is not acquainted with the happenings around, and second, when later in the later stages, he is always confused that what should be the starting day from where I need to cover the current affairs. So, what is in your opinion that particular time frame that we should focus on while preparing current affairs?
At least 1 year's current affair must be prepared before prelims. If you have the time and energy, you can go beyond. And this 1 year must be comprehensively covered through daily newspaper reading, some insights from daily current affairs coverage from coachings. You can read monthly magazines. You can also refer to Yojana, because Yojana is a government document, so you can get government insights on certain happenings. And about how to segregate this current affairs, use online sources well. I did not make handwritten notes of everything. There is a paucity of time, so cutting and copy pasting things on Evernote and doing such activities can save a lot of time. There could also be a thing called like taking a snippet of the newspaper cutting, which you feel that this could be something extraordinary or something very rare people might read, so you can do that also. These kind of activities might save your time. Baki, current affairs is a strict domain, it's a tough domain, so be as comprehensive as you can, but on your final day, don't be underconfident that you haven't read something. Whatever you read, how much soever you read, it would never be enough for current affairs, but you have to read as much as you can.
Okay, okay. So, what is the role of coaching like many of the students are in a dilemma that how should they prepare and what is the importance of coaching specifically in UPSC preparation. Would you tell us like what is your opinion on this? Like how do you see coaching? Because you are part of Vision IS and you have been with us for last 1 year. Please share us your insights on coaching.
So, to me, this coaching has meant a lot. There are students who've qualified without coaching, and I think if I had a lot of time, if I took my timeline as 2 or 3 years, then possibly coaching would not have been needed for my preparation. But since I had a very strict timeline, coaching refined my source materials. I got very precise and accurate mentorship on what to study, how to study, where to study from. Like students face this problem of where to study certain topic and how much to study. I could always go to my teachers and ask, sir, I have studied this much and I cannot answer these questions. So what to do now? How to study for these questions? Is it important to study for this question specifically, or can I leave it and can I just leave it for educated guesses on my final day? This kind of perspective is very helpful when you come to a syllabus as magnanimous as UPSC. It saves a lot of time and you're left with lesser dilemmas to deal. Then secondly, there were days, especially during the COVID pandemic, when I was not sure whether my preparation was actually going in the right direction. So there was this program called Lakshya going in Vision, where I was allotted a mentor, and sir, he really helped me with everything. Even on the days when I was feeling so low, he used to just motivate me that I cannot give up and I cannot just leave the paper. And these all things really helped me. I would say that coaching is not the extremely necessary part of this paper. It is not the most vital thing to do. But for a first attempter like me, it had been important to get that kind of direction in my preparation so that I do not divulge myself into randomness and make my preparation more pinpointed and get the results in a quicker pace.
So it helps to enhance productivity, reduce the time that one can take in this long preparation, and it helps you to focus more on the important things. Okay, so Srishti, we see lot of multiple platforms. There are multiple platforms and websites which talks about. In the information age, you will get a lot of information freely available. How to navigate through all those information? Because as a student, whenever you see a new thing, a new form of information, a new aspect to a particular thing, there is a temptation to go towards it, and in the end, you find that all this is a repetition and you end up wasting your own time. So how to navigate through all those websites, all the noises that are around us?
In my very initial days, I surfed through various of these websites of various institutions and sources, and I filtered 2 or 3 sources which I found to be comprehensive, and I found their language and their way of presenting the opinion apt for this paper. After that, I never went for other sources unless and until I specifically thought that my present sources were inadequate. So, limiting your sources in the initial days is important, so that in your final days, when you're approaching close to the paper, that temptation slowly dies out and you have this confidence that whatever you're reading is enough. Then, secondly, these sources must be reliable. They should not be based on whims and fancy of a person. They must be reliable. And how can you test this reliability? When you're reading this subject and then solving your papers, you're able to attempt as many questions as you can. If you're not able to attempt a lot of questions, then either your sources are not reliable or you're not reading them in the most comprehensive fashion, and it is you who needs to understand which of the following is happening. So I believe so. And then restricting yourself from social media as well, like platforms like Twitter, they might be very important and very vital in various other aspects, but for UPSC preparation they provide a lot of noise, and you do not need to have those amount of radical ideologies when you're going to write a paper as important as UPSC.
Exactly. That you need to constrain yourself and you need to confine that this is the authentic resource that I'm going to follow. And you have to cut all the noises around because they somewhere influences us and sometimes it gets reflected in our writings and can affect our marks. So all the heavy things we are talked about, let's talk about the motivational aspect because this is an year long, maybe more than year long preparation. How do you motivate yourself throughout this whole year?
So, to me, deciding that I need to pursue this paper was itself a motivation because I gave a lot of, and every single candidate gives up a lot of things to prepare for UPSC. We give up our social interactions, our social life, then the freedom of interacting and spending our time in various activities. And I believe, and it also takes a physical and mental toll on every single one of us. So that motivation came to me that if I'm investing so much in something, I need to give my 100% to it. Secondly, this is not the case on all my days. There were days when I felt like even after doing everything, I felt it's not enough or I'm not enough. On those days, my parents, they were always there to tell me that whatever you're doing, if you're putting your best foot forward, that that's it which you can do, and the rest must be left on the situations on there's a concept called nishkam karma. So yes, it should be left on nishkam karma, and you should just do your best and leave the rest.
Yes, and then this was a very good quote that you need to do your best and leave the rest. But there might be some instances where you might be feeling like कि बस बहुत पढ़ लिया है ना, बहुत हो गया है, अब और नहीं पढ़ सकता हूँ या पढ़ सकती हूँ. At that point of time, how did you rejuvenate yourself?
So I had a daily practice of rejuvenation. So I used YouTube as my rejuvenation hour, and every day for about 30 minutes to 1 hour, I used to watch videos of my own enjoyment, my own choices on YouTube. Sometimes I really enjoyed historical stories, or sometimes some stand-up comedy videos, and in that hour I used to rejuvenate myself. You should always have that time for yourself during the preparation. Then since I was a writer, on my tough days, I used to write poetries to motivate myself or read poetries which were inspiring enough to instigate that amount of inspiration in me. Then, if you're getting very much stressed, I also suggest that one should pursue some amount of physical exercise. Like I used to go for cycling or badminton on those days to get that amount of dopamine in my body and get that happiness of doing something new, having a new activity in the day. But this choice should be personal and based on your own choices and whatever hobbies you like to do.
Yes, it is important to rejuvenate yourself, otherwise you'll get stressed up. And everything at the end of the day has its own capacity, so is your mind and your working capabilities. Coming to the motivational aspect, how have you read any motivational book?
Sir, I'm a greater fan of fiction, but I read a book of Gurcharan Das, The Difficulty of Being Good, and it was suggested by one of my teachers. I found it really helpful for UPSC and very inspirational. For each and every student, one can always pursue it.
Okay, so reading books can also help in terms of getting motivated, and there are often books which help us to get a right direction. Uh, Now the results are out. You are an IS officer. So what will be your short term and long term goal?
As a short term goal, I would first like to pursue my training in the best possible fashion and learn as much as I can. I believe that I am too young to handle so much opportunities and responsibilities, so I need to train hard to fulfill my destiny and work and serve in the best possible fashion. In the long term goals, I would first see where I get posted, and according to the need of the area and whichever area it might be lacking, I would work in that direction so that I could invest myself in the best possible way.
Good, good, great. The service to humanity is the greatest service
Yes.
that you can do. So, what main reforms you would want to be part of when it comes to the societal reforms?
As a single girl child who has gotten this immense support from her family, I believe girl child education is something which I look forward to and to be a part of. So, I would really like to contribute in the best possible fashion towards girl child education.
Srishti, do you think there are obstacles, both economic and social, specifically in women related education? Plus, do you think that this hampers their participation in UPSC civil services examination?
Definitely, sir. I myself have friends who were capable, who were very intelligent or very apt for this paper, wanted to prepare but somehow couldn't or could not prepare in the best possible fashion because of economic constraints or societal issues such as not able to leave the house, not able to access the sources, not able to live in Delhi or to go to a coaching institution. These all restraints exist, especially in competitive examinations such as UPSC. Also, there is a restraint in various families where they do not want to invest much of their sources in a girl child and rather want to save it for her marriage or for their boys. So, that creates some kind of added issues with a girl child education and preparation for a paper like UPSC.
Okay, so Srishti, what can be done regarding this?
So, I think the first thing which one needs to understand as a parent of a girl child is that she is an equal deserver of all the opportunities of this world, and they must not restrict their sources, their facilities to a girl child just because she is a girl. She deserves equal amount of attention, love, care and facilities in the form of economic facilities as well as care and support from her parents and family. Also, as a society, it is needed that we motivate our girl child to breach that lack of confidence, which I too faced even when I came from such a nourished family, uh, which most of the girls face, that we are lesser than somebody else who's of the same capability like us. So these things must be done at a societal level. But this is not only enough. We also need to put forward our best administrative practices, motivate the girl child, ensure that every girl is reaching to schools and not deprived of all the opportunities in her life just because she's a girl.
Srishti, many of the women who are facing social or economic constraint might be listening to you. What message would you give them when it comes to the UPSC preparation?
I would like to say, sir, that if you're facing any sort of social or economic constraint, first of all, understand that you are going to be an example to the society if you breach this constraint. So work harder to breach it. Don't give up too easily. It's tough, but it can be done. Secondly, the girl should try her best to keep her family make them understand that something is important to her and she wants to try for it. Work harder to get those scholarships, to get those facilities, to get those added incentives, and get to the list, get to the selected candidate part of competitive examinations. Eventually, with each step, it becomes easier. But yes, initially it's very tough. Initially, you'll face a lot of challenges. Remember that you're only doing it to become an example to the society and also to make your life a better one.
Yes, indeed. I think competitive examinations, once you go through this whole process, it shifts on you on other platform, and you can work on those problems which many of us are facing right now.
Right.
So this is the channel which should be utilized specifically for those who really want to do something when it comes to the societal problems that they face. So, Srishti, it was very nice interacting with you. Would you like to give any future message that you want to give to the future aspirants, those who are preparing? Many of might be facing this, that cutoff kitna jayega. All those have they have those dilemmas, and sometimes they fall कि अब मैं अगली बार prepare करूँ या ना करूँ. Or some people are in their last attempts, some are in their first attempts. So, what message do you want to give to those student, the community that you have now outshined?
A very enlightened selected candidate recently told me कि इस पेपर को निकालने के लिए ज़िद चाहिए होती है. So yes, ज़िद चाहिए होती है. We need to fight for this selection. We need to not give up on tough days, not be complacent, and keep trying, keep working to perfection, to improving ourselves and becoming the kind of, like, inculcating the kind of qualities which are needed for this paper. Also, it is equally important to take care of your physical and mental health in this process, because a body which is not fit would never give you the best kind of results. Don't fall back in getting help and seeking help. Always talk to people who inspire you and keep yourself inspired for this paper. Slowly and steadily you will definitely get success, because this paper might be tough but it's not impossible.
Thank you, Srishti, for your valuable inputs. I think the knowledge, the experience you have shared are going to help the students immensely, the future candidates. We wish you all the very best and luck. Hope you serve the society the way you intend to. All the very best, Srishti.
Thank you so much, sir.